Welcome, everyone. I am Kate Kite, the Continuing Education Coordinator for Illinois Heartland Library System. I want to thank you all for joining us this morning. This is being recorded. Please, if you have not already, I see a lot of people have, and thank you. Please rename yourself to your first name and library, or your first and last name, or your first last name and your library. That is very helpful for us to know who is here. Uh, and then today, Colleen will be answering questions. I will be monitoring the chat and the Q&A, so you can use either of those functions to ask questions. And we've had a lot of exciting new developments in the AMHS since we last held one of these. So I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Colleen.
Yeah. Thank you, Kate. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining this morning. And I'll jump right in on our IHLS share member updates for the AMHS Go Live. So today what we'll cover, the item labeling requirements, tub packing guidelines, sub-tub and weight guidelines as well, an overview of our sorting processes, and then we developed a couple of what happens if scenarios, and then when you might be able to see that machine in person, and then we'll open it up for questions and open discussion. All right, so first let's discuss the item labeling requirements. I'm sure many of you will be familiar with this process, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself with something you've heard previously, but I thought it might be good to go over this again. So for IHLS share members, as you circulate items to another share member through the system delivery, all barcodes should be placed on the exterior of the item unless you use RFID to read your items. This will ensure that items are easily scannable during that handling and processing at the system hubs. The recommended placement is the front top corner, top left, horizontal on the item, but anywhere on the outside of the item is acceptable. Here's an example of the recommended placement of the barcode. You will notice that the transit label is not covering the barcode and there is no rubber band around this item. And the reason we recommend horizontal is because staff will have to rotate the item in order to scan it if your barcodes are vertical. So currently, all items that go from share member to share member must have a transit label on them, and this will be through December 31st, 2025. So all items that are sent to a standalone library, those don't apply here with the transit label changes that we'll be having, and those should have either like that computer generated for ILDS or a handwritten label, and we do encourage the use of rubber bands on the items that are handwritten labels. And the reason for this is because it will help as a visual identifier for sorters that anything with a rubber band will be hand sorted and anything without a rubber band will be sorted on the machine. And we'll talk a little bit more about this later when it talks to item records, but we're encouraging use of rubber bands for anything that's not being circulated through the Polaris system from share member to share member. And just as a reminder, if you do use tape to secure your transit labels instead of the sticky paper, we ask that you please use removable tape. This does help prevent damage to items. So for example, if you place normal tape directly on top of a magazine cover, it will cause that cover to tear when it's removed. So we do recommend the use of that Scotch removable tape. And then when we talk about item labeling those exchange list items, I just kind of wanted to cover this as well right now. If you are sending that and it is just a single item, go ahead and just label that item individually. But if you do happen to be sending like a full tub or an entire box of exchange list items, we go ahead and ask that you actually put the transit label both on the inside of the item or inside of the tub or the box and on the outside. This is because a lot of times sorters kind of get in that motion of they open a tub and they begin sorting everything. And so if it's only labeled on the outside of the box, they may not quickly realize it and they may pull several items out. And if there's a couple different sorters working at the same time and there's two different boxes, they aren't sure which item came out of which box. So it kind of helps keep exchange list items together if it's an entire box of those items, because we do realize that you're not going to be able to label every single item if it's an entire box of stuff. So please do that with the exchange list. And then as far as labeling for the share cataloging items, if you're a share member who uses the share cataloging service, you should have either received a supply of bright green transit labels last week, or if you haven't yet got your delivery or you're a school that's on pause right now, you'll receive those in the next couple of weeks or when you reopen. Please remember that these green transit labels are to be used for cataloging items only. This is to help our sorting staff clearly distinguish which items are going to cataloging staff versus which items are going to an IHLS system hub. So, or to an actual IHLS member. So for example, if you address your item Carbondale, a lot of times a sorter will open that up and they'll see Carbondale and they'll send that automatically onto Carbondale Public Library because to their mind, Carbondale means Carbondale Public Library, not IHLS Carbondale. So using those green transit labels that we've developed are very helpful in getting the sorting staff to sort it to the right place the first time. So. Okay, so then jumping into the future, after January 1st, 2026, share member to share member materials with that normal transit status, no transit label will be required for those. So we ask again, please no rubber bands with those items, but then everything else, all other items that you'll be sending, those will still require a transit label and rubber bands can be used for those materials. So here's a list of some of the items that will not be sorted by the machine. Anything that's CMC cataloging, share cataloging, if it's those really large kits or a fragile item or anything that's marked as a damaged item within the share system from a share member to share member, those will ask you to use a handwritten label. And I'll talk a little bit more about those damaged items later. But I just kind of wanted to run down a list of items that we will not be sorting by the machine. Okay, so this is a topic that we've talked about in the past, but after a little bit more research with our internal team and trying to develop a way to automatically do this, we've unfortunately realized that with transit labels, we are not going to be able to turn them off at a system level. So previously we thought that we would be able to turn that off system wide whenever that appropriate time came up. However, we have since discovered that this is just a local workstation setting for each library and each workstation you have at your library. So since then, we've kind of made the determination each library will need to be able to turn off those transit labels on their own individually at their own workstations. And so libraries should plan to do that whenever we give it that go ahead and come January. We will, of course, communicate with you about that. We'll send paper memos through delivery, and we'll also give you instructions on how to do this. We do know that quite a few member libraries said that they wanted to continue using transit labels, even though they weren't required. So that'll be a benefit to you because you won't have any extra work to do. You can just leave them on. But if you have any questions about that, we will absolutely communicate with you when it comes closer to January and it's time to turn off those transit labels. Okay, so now let's switch to the tub packaging guidelines. To help improve the efficiency during handling and check-in on the machine, we ask that you place items in the tubs with the barcodes facing upward whenever that's possible. Now, in some cases, the barcode may be located inside of the item, and that might be common for the libraries that use RFID. They didn't have to move their barcodes to the outside, so those will continue to be on the inside. So if when you're packaging items to go back into the tub and it does have an inside barcode, we just ask that you try to place them with whatever side has that barcode facing upward. So if it happens to be on the inside of the back cover, please try to flip that up the other way and face it in the tub so that that end that will have the barcode, that's facing upward. And for transit labels, it is completely acceptable to put that label on the back of the item, especially if that's where the barcode is, because it will help those sorters quickly identify where the barcode is. Because we are scanning every single item by a barcode for it to be sorted, unless it's RFID. So we're kind of playing a hunt the barcode game to be able to get items inducted on the machine. So it is helpful if you have those placed in the tubs, barcodes facing up. So then as far as for transit labels, we ask that you please do not put them over top of the barcode of an item. As you see here in this picture, it just slightly was covering that barcode. And if you could have moved it down just like a half of an inch, it would have completely left the barcode open and easily scannable. Whereas in this case, we had to remove that transit label, move it down a little bit to be able to scan it, to send it by the machine. So if it's possible to leave those from being covered, that would be really helpful. And then if it is a really small item and it's not even possible to not cover up a barcode, if there is a way to put it sideways, the transit label, so that it is still seen, that's helpful and it's fine to do that. If it's not, it is what it is. And we just understand that we'll have to remove some labels to be able to get to those barcodes to scan them. Okay, so the use of padded mailers. We know that some of you use padded mailers out of a concern for protecting those fragile items, and we do completely understand that. If you're sending something that is very delicate or fragile, we will not send those fragile items through the machine. We will continue to hand sort them if there is a concern of, for some reason, that item getting damaged. But if you're putting them in there kind of to prevent damage, and you want to continue using something, we do recommend that these, we found these clear protectors from Uline, and we'll recommend using those because those will keep something inside of a packaging, but then the barcode could still be scannable through that clear packaging. You could also use something if you wanted to constantly keep it inside of the same item. You could use that clear folder and put the barcode on the outside as well. But a lot of times libraries are just keeping those same padded mailers or clear mailers to use for multiple different items. So the machine can still scan them through that clear padded or clear mailer whenever you're using these ones from Uline. Okay, and then just a general note, I know we've already talked about this with rubber bands. Please don't use them unless you're going to send something to a standalone library. If it is that handwritten ILDS or cataloging item, fine to use a rubber band. Everything else, just try to leave the rubber bands off if it's going from share member to share member. And additionally, if you're labeling an item for transit, if it is a stack of like 3 DVDs or 3 books that are all going together to the same library, we do ask that you label those individually. That's different from those exchange list items, just because sometimes labels do get separated or a rubber band can break. So no matter which system you're using, a handwritten label or a share member label, we ask that you only put 1 transit label per item when it's to do with interlibrary loan. Okay, let's switch to the tub guidelines and weight limits. So as the machine is sorting, an item is scanned and then it goes down the conveyor belt, and the machine actually will place items into a tub, first on the left side of the tub and then on the right-hand side of the tub, and they'll be loaded on every other side alternatively. So you may notice that the items that come in your tubs, they're not going to be perfectly straight like they used to be before, but sorters are still going around and walking along the machine, and they're fixing some items. They're making sure it's still laying correctly in the machine and that no book or item is ended up landing imperfectly. So we are somewhat fixing it, but it's not going to be at the same level as it was before. So I just kind of wanted to mention that. And then I did make a short video of how the machine plays, works. So you'll see here, there it landed on the right, and then it landed on the left, and here again on the right, and there on the left. So it will kind of alternate landing on the right and the left. And as you can see, it kind of more landed towards the front of the tub. So sorters will kind of have to go around and reposition some of the items so that it does still land perfectly throughout the items in the machine. Okay, so the tub limit, that still should be a maximum of 40 pounds. And we do recommend that you keep it to 35 pounds. So you should not fill those items beyond those max fill line stickers in the tub. And we've got a little visual here of if you can see here with my arrow, here's that max fill line. And we do ask that you do not fill it any further here than this lowest line. It's not the top part here where the caution is. It's down at the bottom where these arrows are pointing to. And we do ask that you keep it to 40 pounds. We do know that some heavier, like larger books can be heavier. And so if you ended up like in this particular tub, there were a couple heavy books. So it made sense for us to just stop it below the max fill line because it was going to be a heavier book. And that's perfectly acceptable to do that. We're not going to get mad at you for leaving them too empty, as long as obviously they're considerably filled. So, okay, overview of the sorting process. Let's review some of our details for how that sorting process works. So first off, for the delivery on the go service, I know that some libraries had asked whether or not we'll still plan to continue that, and we are still planning on continuing that delivery on the go. So when you're processing items to leave your library, if some of the items are for libraries on that same route as you, and they're a stop after your library, you can package those items in those orange delivery on the go bags, and the driver will deliver that to that library later on in the route, instead of having to return that item to the system for later sorting and later delivery. So this not only benefits the patron by receiving their items sooner to the library, but it also benefits IHLS by having less items to sort at our hubs. So these items will require you to fill out a line on that delivery on the go bag because the drivers do not have access to Polaris when they're on their route. So that line will need to be filled out to whichever library it's going to. And if for some reason it does get separated, then we would have to bring it back to the hub. And then as far as community delivery partnerships, we will absolutely continue those as well. Nothing will be changing with that program. You'll continue to receive your items at that designated drop location, and items will still be separated by that agency. So if at any time you determine you don't want to continue with that community delivery partnership, just contact us at the help desk and we can arrange alternative setup for that. Okay, and then as far as delivery members who have multiple branches or multiple schools, you'll continue to receive all your items together in a single container. But then what happens whenever we stop doing transit labels? Because that I know that a lot of libraries use those transit labels currently to be able to sort by their branches or schools. So to make that easier on your end, what we're going to do is when we stop using transit labels, we'll begin applying a smaller label for these items that are meant for a specific branch or school, and the items that are going to your main delivery location, they will have no label at all. So no label means that it's for that main delivery drop location, and then everything else that does have this smaller version of a transit label applied at the system, those will be for one of those branches or schools that's leaving that main delivery location. And we won't begin doing that until after we've stopped the transit labels completely. Okay, so now we came up with a couple of what happens if scenarios for that check-in process, because some may be familiar, some may not be, but actually what the machine is doing when we're sorting that item down the machine is it's checking it in at the system. So we will have a mark on that item history, so it shows when it was actually scanned and inducted at the machine, and then it was actually checked in. So sometimes that's good. Sometimes it can be a mistake. So here's a couple of what happens if scenarios. So what happens if the item has been pulled for hold, but the library forgot to mark it as transferred? So when the item goes to the machine will check it in, it will mark it as transferred, and then it will send it along to that pickup library. So in that case, no big deal, the machine will fix that mistake. What happens if the patron cancels the hold while it's being transferred? The machine will check it in. It will either send it back to the home library if there's not another patron in line next, or it will send it to that patron in line. So again, that's fine. The machine will fix that mistake. So what happens if the item is still checked out to a patron and it wasn't checked in before it got sent in the delivery tub? Same thing here. The machine will check it in. It will either send it home if there's not another patron in line, or it will send it along to that next patron. So what happens if the item is withdrawn and it has a withdrawn circulation status? In this case, the machine will not even be able to check it in or scan it or sort it because anything that's marked as withdrawn, it doesn't have that ability to be able to be checked in. So the machine will not be able to sort it. In some cases, maybe that's intentional, but you would have to use a handwritten label if you wanted to send something that was a withdrawn status for whatever reason, you would need to send that. So what happens if the item is missing or unavailable status? The machine will still check that in and it will send it either home or along to that next patron. So this is where you do kind of have to be a little bit more cautious if you're trying to use that missing or unavailable status and an item comes back through. In some cases, that might be good because you're marking it missing or unavailable because we think maybe it's lost in delivery or something, but the machine will still be able to process that and send it along to either the next patron or to the home library, whatever is next. And then what happens if the item is lost status? The machine may not be able to check in that item. So also with the lost status, it probably won't work either there with the machine. And then this is a big topic one, and I know a couple libraries have reached out about this. So what happens if the item is damaged and either it has an item block or it's in damaged circulation status? So what we found is that these items that we, in theory, should not send those through the automated material handling system, but instead should have that damaged item report form. And we ask that you do use rubber bands to put that around that outside of that book. So this will alert the sorters, because sometimes those handwritten labels, if they're taped, sometimes they rub around on the in the tub and they get separated from that item. So the rubber bands do help when it's taped on transit labels, keep them on the book and keep it from being separated. And if for some reason, when a damaged item that's been marked, if it gets checked in by the machine will then go ahead and check it in, and it will sort it to either the next patron or to that home library. And this can sometimes cause problems if you're trying to send a book to a specific person, and that's not really what the next status should be in Polaris. So currently, the Share Circulation Committee, they're reviewing the formal procedures for that damaged items, but until they come up with those more formal procedures and they're announced, for now, go ahead and please use that damaged item form that's available on the Share website. I'll find that link here a bit and send it to everybody in the chat. But because the machine will check those in automatically, including any damaged ones, we want to avoid our sorters doing that because it will accidentally send it along to another patron. And if you use that secure damaged item form with the rubber band, that will help us kind of like mentally telling us, oh, rubber band, don't try to sort this item, don't scan it on the machine. But then obviously, as a reminder, please don't use rubber bands on any of the items for the machine. So if for some reason our sorters do make that error, we've developed an internal process where the sorter will put that book aside, we'll let the Share staff know, and Share staff will be in contact with your library to let you know that they've accidentally scanned it on the machine. I know that this happened in particular at Edwardsville Hub about a week ago, and the sorter noticed it right away. You could see it. We went back and watched our camera. They scanned it, but then they quickly noticed, oh, it had a handwritten label, and they went ahead and routed along to the right library, but the library didn't know that because the Polaris status was wrong. And so we do kind of have to have that notifications next step of letting the Share member know, hey, we know that this happened with your status of your item, but it is being routed along to the right location. So that's what we'll continue to do there. Okay, so when can you see the machine in person? For those that have been following along, Edwardsville Hub did go live, and we had a live board meet and greet and demonstration in May for our Edwardsville machine. And actually, the Champaign install is happening as we speak. It's done today, hopefully, and we'll be doing our sorters training on that after this meeting. And so at the Champaign Hub, we'll have another board meet and greet with an AMHS tour, and that will be on Tuesday, July 22nd. We'll start at 3:30 p.m., and I'll do like a short little presentation on the before and after for the machine, and then we'll have some light refreshments as well provided. So the QR code here on the screen will be how you can register on L2, and please join us if you can. If you're a Champaign Hub library and you're available on that afternoon, we ask that, yeah, please join us. It's exciting for us, and you'll be able to see that machine in action. And then for the Carbondale Hub, since we've last sent our updates in the member connection, we have actually went ahead and scheduled dates for Carbondale install, and they'll be installing towards the end of August. So for Carbondale, we're planning to have our live demonstration at the fall annual membership celebration, and we'll also do a live demonstration of the machine then. And then we'll also plan to announce those winners of the Name the Machine contest at that time too. I know we were originally going to do that today, but as every large project goes, things don't always work how we go with dates. So the new date for this will be on October 28th, and that will be at 3:30 p.m. We'll have a small portion at the actual Carbondale building, and then we'll go across, it's kind of like a parking lot or a pond in Carbondale, to the Dunn Richmond building, and there's where we'll have our annual meeting and then the board meeting. Okay, so now I'd like to open it up to any questions or concerns. I did have two staff that had asked questions about this process when we were meeting with staff about kind of preparing for the whole installation. And I thought I would kind of go over those two questions now, but then I'd open it up to any of the questions, and hopefully Kate will help me with the live Q&A. So do we expect any issues with the machine? So of course, with any kind of technology, just like when you're using your laptop, you occasionally have small details that have problems and you have to contact IT for it. So we do, of course, expect some degree of minor issues to do with technology. But when we were researching companies, Linkso was rated one of the best companies when it came time to downtime with the machine and large possible issues or hardware issues. So we don't expect it to be any different than all the other current users who use a Linkso sorting machine. And we expect minimal downtime when it comes to using that machine. So the most that has been reported was a 24-hour down period. And that was because they didn't have a spare part in the building. So the Linkso machine does give us a set of spare parts for random things. If anything ever goes wrong, we do have a hotline that we're able to call and they'll help us walk through if it's something minor. If it's something major, they fly somebody in if they need to, and there's somebody on site, hopefully within 12 hours, helping us get that repair fixed. So Linkso is a good, reputable company when it comes to hopefully not having large periods of downtime. And then what would happen if there's a power outage and how would we be able to sort? So just as now, if we have for some reason a large power outage and the power is out at our buildings for multiple periods or multiple hours, we're not going to expect our staff to stay and sort in a dark building because we don't have any lights. We're going to send the staff home and we're going to pick it back up the next day. And so that's what we would do now as well. If for some reason we had a power outage and the machine was not able to sort, we would not stay and sort either in the dark. So, okay, so those were the only two questions I had. We can switch it over to live Q&A. And Kate, if you want to let me know if there's any questions in the chat.
We've just had one. I do want
Okay.
to say that Cassandra did share the share damage item
Perfect.
label. And so we had one question. If an item is lost, then what happens to it when the machine can't read it? Will it be sent back to the home library?
If I remember correctly on the what ifs, because Cassandra, you may have to chime in here because she was helping me with these what ifs and she was testing multiple items on the machine. But I think the lost item status, Cassandra, do you at all, if she's on, hopefully, the machine may not be able to check in the item. Do you know? Oh, am I in the right? Yes, I am. Uh, do you know, Cassandra, by chance, if it was working when we tried it on the lost item status or not?
No, I
I do.
said that was the only time that I was able to quote unquote break it. It just
Okay.
stops the machine and it does not move forward. So
Okay.
we would have to send it back to the home library.
Okay.
And the reason it does that is because there might be fees associated with that lost item. And so the machine can't make that decision. It needs to come from the home library. So we just need to send it back.
Okay. So that'll just be our protocol. We'll send it along to the home library and we'll go from there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks.
Mhm.
I apologize. I got on a little late. And so it was kind of interesting that you're talking about reports of damaged items because I just had one today.
Okay.
But I'm in the Champaign hub. And so I didn't know if you wanted me to use this today or if I should just go ahead and use the small little transit slip that I was going to use anyway, because I was sending the damaged item back to the owning library.
Okay, I think go ahead actually because today we're hoping to go live with the machine. They just
Okay.
finished up everything last week with the machine, and so they're starting to use the machine today. So I
Oh,
think it would
okay.
be a great example that I could use to show this
Yes.
sorters.
Yeah.
And go ahead and put that damaged item form on the outside of the item, and
Okay.
don't put the normal transit label.
Oh.
If that's, and I should have put that in there too. I didn't even think to list that. And we'll come out with a little bit more formal procedures once that share circulation comes up with the exact details. But for now, please put it on the outside and please use a rubber band because then it won't
Okay.
get separated.
Right.
One a couple weeks back with Edwardsville, and I think it was O'Fallon Library, and they tried to send it along, like I think it was like 2 or 3 different times. And unfortunately, either I don't know what happened, if either the sorters weren't quite understanding that process yet, or maybe the label just got separated, I think, if it was taped down. But it just kept going on to the next page, and that's not what we were trying to have it do. So yeah, I think if you can make it very obvious, this is a different label. It's not the normal share item, and then use a rubber band. I think that will hopefully help them from continuing to try to scan that on the machine.
Right. And then what Cassandra posted, I mean, that looks like a full sheet of paper. So I can't imagine. I mean, if we're going to use that, is it supposed to be a full sheet of paper or
Yeah,
is it
good
supposed to
point.
be a label?
Yeah.
Regardless, because obviously if it's a full sheet of paper, it's easy to rubber band it and hopefully
Yes.
not get lost.
Yes. I think it is a full sheet of paper, and I think it's a form that they've had for a while now. So we haven't yet formally made a decision on how
Okay.
exactly we're going to do that protocol. So what I would
Okay.
do if I were you, I think it's fine to kind of, if it's a book and it's not super tall, wrap it around that
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
and just use the
Yeah.
rubber band to put it around horizontally.
Okay.
Because either way, they're going to look and read what that label says of where it's going versus trying to scan it on the machine. Oh, and I should mention too, if there's a way to cover up the barcode in that case, that would be helpful too, because then it kind of forces them to, if for some reason, because what they're doing is they're like mentally, you're opening a tub and you're looking for that barcode. That's the first thing you're kind of hunting for. So I think any kind of impediment to kind
Yeah.
of slow them down and make them look and say, oh, this is a handwritten label. This has a rubber band. I can't get to my barcode. I think it will be helpful to
Okay.
prevent them from trying to scan it on the machine.
Okay, great.
No other questions have come in the chat other than, will this presentation be recorded, which it is being recorded, and it will be available within the next few days at latest. So if anybody has any other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourself. Oh, here is a question just came through. Will the hubs continue to add exterior barcodes after 12/31/25?
So as of right now, we're waiting. We're waiting to kind of make that determination. As of right now, the intergovernmental agreements, those are through 12/31/2025. So we're going to wait and see once we get all three kind of hubs using the machines, how it's looking for that hand sort process or for those libraries that we are doing that duplication for, because we definitely don't want to stop that process if it is something that's helpful for those libraries. But at the same time, we don't want to make all these libraries continue using transit labels if they don't want to. So with Carbondale being able to be installed now in August, we're hoping that by mid-October, November, we'll have a better gauge on what that process is like and how many items do still have inside barcodes. And then we'll make a determination from then. But yes, for now, it's planned to stop December 31st, 2025. But if for some reason we need to extend that process, we will be reaching out to all the libraries, and it would require kind of an extension on that intergovernmental agreement.
Thank you, Colleen. I am not seeing any other questions. I know you covered a lot of great information.
Mhm.
We'll give it
I'll go to the last slide here so you can have my information too, in case anybody wants to reach out to me. You're welcome to do that. I'll have my phone number and email here. And oh, just for the Champaign libraries, if you'll be new to this process, then we'll send you an email in the next day or so, kind of with some details of what to expect. And I think we're also probably printing paper memos, and we'll put them in your tubs just to kind of go over some of the details that you can share with the circulation staff when it comes to, facing those barcodes up, those kind of details for the transit labels, not covering up the barcodes and such. So be on the lookout for that email, and please do share it with your staff so they're aware of these details too.
We just got a question in.
Sure.
Would you be able to hand sort if needed due to unforeseen mechanical failure, which would cause the machine to be out of commission for a while?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if for some reason the machine went down, we would hand sort. We would not wait for the machine to come back up. Obviously, when it comes to not having transit labels, that would make it a little bit more cumbersome. But that is one benefit of the Linkso company is there are a lot of people who use these machines, and luckily 24 hours has been the longest period of time that anyone has reported it being down. Because it will be tedious if we would have to scan each item to kind of find where its location is going to, and then trying to manually put that in the tub where it's going. So hopefully that continues and their reputation, from what everyone we've talked to, continues to be that way. So.
Thank you, Colleen.
Yep.
We'll keep this open for a couple more minutes. It's just to see if anybody has any questions.
You know, one thing I just realized I didn't think to list in this PowerPoint presentation, but it's one of the benefits of the machine that I thought I wanted to explain. One thing we didn't realize, and you'll see it on the Champaign email if you're a Champaign Hub member, but so as an item leaves your library, what we've realized is that the item status can change a little bit more frequently than what we thought before. So when we first started kind of testing the machine in Edwardsville, we would notice, oh, an item would go into, say, for example, the O'Fallon bin, but it would have the Belleville label on it. And we were like, oh, is this sorting things wrong or what's going on here? But then we would take that item and take it to Polaris just to kind of double check that item status. And we realized that what was happening is, for example, that was maybe a Belleville owned item. And say a patron from Edwardsville Public Library had borrowed it and Edwardsville was returning it to Belleville. So when it left the Edwardsville Public Library, they put a receipt on there that said Belleville. And so between the time Edwardsville sending it to the system and the system scanning it, a patron from O'Fallon Public Library had put a hold on that item. And so the machine automatically knew that and sorted it directly to that O'Fallon tub. Whereas before, with using the paper transit labels, we would have sent it all the way back to Belleville for Belleville to check it in, then to say, oh, it's going to O'Fallon. So then it would come back to the system again, and we would hand sort that again to go back to the O'Fallon's tub. So it's kind of slowing down that transit period time then for when their patron's item status did change in the middle of delivery and transit. And so the machine does have that most up-to-date status for whatever that item is supposed to be going. So if for some reason you're noticing items in your tubs and when we're using those transit receipts still, it shows a different library's name, all the times that I've been aware of so far, has it been 100% correct that the machine actually was routing it wrong to the right library because of that. So if for some reason you ever notice anything that is wrong with that, please reach out to me and let me know. But that is one good benefit that we've noticed so far as not prolonging the delivery of that item.
Thank you. No further questions have come in.
Okay.
So, oh, let's see. That one just did. If it is
Okay.
determined that the hubs will no longer add exterior barcodes after 12/31/25, what should libraries do if a requested item needs to be sent in transit but only contains an interior barcode?
They'll have to figure out a solution for that if that's going to be the plan, because we don't expect that the library at their level is going to be able to do that if you don't have the supplies and equipment for that. So we'll make that determination when it comes closer to fall of whether or not we're extending that project. And then if we're not, what are going to be the plans? Because I don't think it'd be reasonable to expect you to have to do that when you don't have the supplies for it. So we'll figure out a workflow for that when it comes time.
Colleen, we put our own labels on, so will the barcoder machine still be available? Like I tend to,
Absolutely. Yep.
okay, because
Yep.
we have them all sitting on a cart right now. I'm in line to get a machine. Sometimes the labels before we covered them with the clear label, got damaged or stuff
Yeah.
like that. So I just wanted to make sure that those machines would still be available.
Absolutely. Yeah, we we purchased those as the system and we still have them available. And actually that's a good point I should mention to anybody. If you at some point said, "Oh, I don't need a borrow machine," but then you've been rethinking it and would like to borrow a machine now, or even if you were worried that maybe other libraries in line, we actually have multiple duplicator kits available for checkout right now. So if that's something you're interested in and you didn't previously want to borrow them and want to now, please reach out to me. But if you already are part of that option 2 library and you're in line, there are multiple kits available. So you can go ahead and make a reservation now if that is something you'd like to borrow again. And we did extend those loan periods on that as well, in case you didn't see that. They're now loan periods of 60 days. And a lot of times, some of the libraries that have been borrowed, they've been able to renew it because no one else was in line. So if you just want to borrow a kit to just set at your circulation desk and you just do items to duplicate them as they're getting ready to leave your library, even if it's at that capacity, you're welcome to borrow a kit because we do have them available.
We had a question of, can we copy interior barcodes, cut them out, and tape them on the outside of the item?
I I don't know whether or not that works. I would like to test it with the machine if that's something you are interested. I heard that some libraries were actually cutting out the same barcode, and that I do know does work by the machine, but I don't know as far as of like if they're talking about making a copy with a copier. In that case, I would just recommend using our duplicator because that's essentially what the duplicator is doing. It's just like it's a handheld scanner, and you open up the item to where the barcode is, and you scan it with the scanner, and it prints out a duplicate. So it would be a duplicate barcode for you. I can't speak to whether or not like a copied piece of paper would scan by the machine. And I would hate for you to go for all that work and then it not work on the machine. But I'm happy to test it. If you want to reach out to me and you want to send me a paper copy of a barcode, we can go over that and see if it would work or not for your library.
Thank you, Colleen. I'm going to do last call for any questions. Okay. As I have mentioned, this is being recorded and it will be available to everyone who registered, and it'll be up on our website, probably the delivery page, I would assume. And want to thank you all for coming this morning. And thank you so much, Colleen, for giving us the update on the automatic materials handling system. And if anyone has any questions afterwards that you think about, again, Colleen's contact information is on the screen. Feel free to reach out.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone for coming today, and please reach out if you have any questions.